Hi, welcome to our channel. Today we'll be learning how to play Monopoly, where the only thing more valuable than Park Palace is your ability to negotiate with Cousin Joe. The board is set up by stacking the chance and community chest cards on the board in the spaces provided. Each player selects a token to move around the board. Each token starts on the go space. Each player receives $1,500 to start the game. The $1,500 is given in 2 500s, 2 100s, 2 50s, 6 20s, 5 10s, 5 5s, and 5 1s. One player will need to be designated the banker. The banker will distribute and collect money and manage the properties, houses, and hotels. The objective of the game is to become the wealthiest player in the game through buying, renting, and selling property. On each player's turn, the 2 dice are rolled, and the player's tokens move the space equal to the value rolled. Player 1 rolls 9 and moves 9 spaces. Based on the spaces landed on, an action will be taken. Player 1 lands on a property space for Pentonville Road. Player 1 has the option to buy the property for the price listed on the space, $120. Player 1 decides to buy the property. Player 2 rolls next and rolls a 9. Player 2 moves and lands on Player 1's property. When the player lands on another player's property, the player must pay the owner rent. The rent amount is listed on the property card. Player 2 pays Player 1 $8. Player 3 rolls a 7 next and moves 7 spaces. Player 3 lands on a chance space and draws a chance card. The card reads, "Bank pays you a dividend of $50. The bank pays Player 3 $50. Players continue to take turns rolling and moving their tokens, then taking the necessary action, depending on the space landed on. Most spaces represent a property when landed on. The player has the option to purchase the property from the bank. A property's price is listed on the bottom of the space. A player may land on a chance space and will draw a chance card. The action described on the chance card is then completed and the card is returned to the bottom of the pile. A player may land on a community chest space and will draw a community chest card. The action described on the community chest is then completed and the card is returned to the bottom of the pile. A player may land on the tax space and will pay the tax described. If a player lands on the jail space, nothing happens as he or she is just visiting. If a player lands on a free parking space, nothing happens. If a player lands on the go to jail space, the player will go into jail. Every time a player lands on or passes the go space, the player will collect $200 from the banker. If a player lands on a property space that is already owned by another player, that player will have to pay the owner rent. The amount owed is listed on the property card. When a player lands on an open property but chooses not to buy the property from the bank for the printed price, the property is auctioned off. All players will make bids and the highest ending bid will get the property for the final amount bid. When a player lands on a space that you own, you are responsible for asking and collecting the rent before the next player rolls the dice. If a player rolls the same number on both dice, he or she will move the amount, complete the action required, and then gets to roll again. This is known as rolling doubles. If a player rolls 3 doubles in a row, that player goes directly into jail without passing go or collecting $200. When in jail, a player has 3 ways to get out of jail: by rolling the same number on both dice, by playing a get out of jail free card. The get out of free jail card can be drawn from the chance or community chest piles or purchased from another player at an agreed upon price. Or lastly, by paying $50 to the bank before you roll. Then, whatever you roll, you will move that many spaces. If a player owns all the properties of the same color, the rent doubles. For example, when a player owns all the orange properties and another player lands on Bow Street, the rent would be $28. Also, when a player owns all the properties of the same color, houses can be bought for the properties. The player that owns all the orange properties can put a house on Marlborough Street for $100. When a house is on a property, the rent increases according to the card. Houses must be split as evenly as possible among the properties, meaning each property must have at least one house before adding a second house to the property. Once all the properties in the colour have 4 houses, a hotel can be purchased. This again raises the rent for other players that land on this property. The money spent on houses and hotels is paid to the bank. The bank may run out of houses and hotels to sell. In this case, all players will have to wait for a house or a hotel to be sold back to the bank before buying. When needed, a player can sell hotels and houses back to the bank for half the price paid for them. If a property has no houses or hotels on it, a player can sell the property to another player for an agreed upon amount. A property with no houses or hotels on it can be mortgaged back to the bank. The mortgage amount received from the bank is on the back of the property's card. When a property is mortgaged, no rent is collected when players land on it. The mortgage is lifted when the mortgage amount is paid back to the bank plus 10%. Once the player owes more money than can be paid, it has no properties to sell, he or she is declared bankrupt and is out of the game. The last player to remain in the game is the winner. That wraps up how to play Monopoly. Thanks for watching! If you've enjoyed this tutorial, like, share and subscribe for more game guides. Let us know in the comments which game you'd like to master next.